Hey, how y'all doing? We currently, presently, and always have been living in the state of the informants. But the informants um, have been brainwashed to the point that the informant doesn't even realize that he's the informant until it's too late. There are trained informants. They're called cops, CIA, politicians, preachers, pastors. Um, Those are also your disinformers, your disinformant agents. They like to feed you enough of the truth to make you want to trust them, but then they leave you with a question of if they can think a certain way, how can they fit certain propaganda into their message? Hence, the disinformer. A lot of my favorite speakers, um, at one point or another, I found out they're disinformants. They tell enough of the truth, but then they'll throw things on you that's going, well, wait a minute, man. If you got so much logic to speak, how can you say certain things? How do you buy into if you're so on point about certain things, whether it be historically, or whatever your field, of expertise may be. So a lot of people multitask. A lot of people are doing more than one thing at any given time. Um, so how can you be so informed and so on point about certain information situations, um, and present situations, but then they throw the curveball at you with some shit that doesn't make any fucking sense at all, and it makes you question the validity of what you're listening to and who you're listening to. Um, perfect, perfect person that, there's a lot of perfect people that come to mind. White, black, Sunni, Muslim, it doesn't matter. Like I said, with these Masons and with the fuckery, it comes in any and every color. A lot of people think because it's foreign, um, there's mystique to that. So they tend to want to, a lot of people delve into it. A lot of people totally shut it out, which is a bad decision in itself because you should always want to investigate anything that enters your life, instead of shut it out, because therefore, when you shut things out, you become envious, jealous, you let jealousy, um, deceitfulness, spitefulness, all those things manifest out of something as simple as not wanting to know because it's not your kind, your creed, your credo, whatever. Um, it doesn't make it wrong, nor does it make it right. But by one shutting himself out from at least seeking answers that manifest into fear, and everybody knows what comes out of fear. Everything comes out of fear. Murder, rage, cowardness, um, because people with knowledge doesn't have nothing to fear because not that they're bold, they're brave, and they're brazen and they're fucking Rambo about shit. It's just that they have knowledge of the good, the bad, and the in between of everything, or of not of everything, because none of us are perfect. We're all just biologically humans. There's nothing perfect about any of us. So you just have to be the best interpreter and receptor, receiver, transmitter, and also at the same time, you need to be able to decipher and make sure you're putting out the right message to the people around you? Um, or what's the point, right? So, disinformants. A person who I listened to for, this is now definitely in my fourth year of this, my research into just not necessarily conspiracy theories, but things that don't logically make sense to me. A guy that made a bunch of sense to me and still does to a certain extent. But then you have to always ask, in my mind, the agent aspect of it all. Now, this individual, God rest his soul, he just passed a week or so ago, 2 weeks or so ago. Dr. Dick Gregory used to be a comedian in the late 60s, mid 60s, early 60s. Went on to be a political speaker and so forth and so on. And if you don't know of Dr. Dick Gregory, look him up. He does have a lot of great information, but he says things that makes you know that he's an agent. Yes, he loves to use foul language. He's very blunt. He's very direct. He's very user friendly. He doesn't use dialect and dialogue that's going to confuse a novice listener, a novice beginner, or maybe just somebody towards hatred towards other races. He speaks very well, and he's got a lot of great topics. But the thing with Dr. Dick Gregory that throws me off is when he starts talking about reptilian races and shape shifting and so forth and so on, because he is a very logical person. Now, keep in mind, his roots were a comedian. Hence the Masons, because the trick is, when you take these oaths, you take these oaths to the point that even your fellow Mason may not even know you're a Mason, but your oath and the steps you take to become a full-fledged trusted Masonic member, there there almost isn't any rules when it comes to the end result. Two Masons can be on either side of the battle and understand that one of those individuals have got to lose, but it's for the greater purpose of their movement. So they'll have the blind cheering them on, not knowing that this leader already knows that he could be the sacrificial lamb to the end of this BS. Most of the times not. Usually the lamb is the one that is the true patsy. Usually the lamb is the patsy. The lamb is the martyr. The lamb is the one that doesn't get away. They set examples. Excuse me, I apologize. Now that I'm thinking of martyrs, the other day I kept bringing up Farrakhan's name with all the fallen Masons, and I was meaning Malcolm X. I wasn't meaning Farrakhan. Farrakhan hit the brain because a lot of people say that Farrakhan was the trigger man or one of the hitmen behind Dr. Malcolm X's passing and assassination. And Dick Gregory, he's also got some. It's like, the thing with Dr. Dick Gregory is he don't tell you too much that somebody else hasn't already told you. The difference between what he's telling you and what these other individuals have told in the past is they've died. They're dead over things he speaks about. And that's because that's old news. It's done been exposed. So you have to ask yourself, what, and this is research that I do on myself and on Dr. Dick Gregory. What out of the pros and the cons, and the, let's say, year and a half I've spent following him, out of the 4 years, uh, kept up with him, enjoyed his lectures, enjoyed what he spoke about. But there were the if factors too, and a lot of things he said. And then it goes back to the disinformant. You can never ever, just because you believe in something someone or somebody said, don't think for one instant that that individual can't be an informant or can't be a liar or can't be unrighteous, because we're all human. Even fucking what's his name, Deepak Chopra or whatever the fuck his name, every one of us have, Gandhi, womanizer, all of us have some type of biological and human flaws in us. So don't feel for one instance, because somebody is telling you something that touches your soul and affects your life, don't think at the same token that individual doesn't have maliciousness in his soul too, because that's what we're made up of. We are 50% evil and 50% righteous. You have to learn to let that righteousness override the wickedness. But don't get it twisted. Every now and then you need that wickedness. So never dull it down to the point to where you become cowardly. You're a coward in a situation. Your wickedness should also need to be known as part of your character, as far as not to be fucked with. Let's not say reputation or anything, just the makeup of you as a human being. There is such thing in this world as somebody being, uh, his balls is his words. But at the same time, that same human being has the right to be compassionate, has the right to be compassionate towards the other individual. That individual also has the right, as a human being, to be vigilant, to be deceitful, to be all of the above. A lot of times people that are held in high esteem are up neck deep into shit. It just their fucking nose is above water, above the funk of it all. Because sometimes that's what life does. Sometimes there's just as much fucking wickedness as righteousness that goes into your works, your goals, and the end result of your life. Is it worth it and worthy? Only that individual can answer that for you. That's I would just be a speculator when it comes to something like that. I'm trying to stay away from the live feeds, though. I noticed they've been working out a little bit more. Sorry to all my individuals that's really having problems, but low tech it down a little bit. That's my advice. Low tech it down a little bit. See how much you can float through. Um, because, like I said, I do like to do live, but I also know they pay attention to the live shit a little bit more than they do the pre-recorded type things. Unless it's YouTube. YouTube is shady like you wouldn't believe. It's funny, the things they want to let loose, and the things. It's like if you're telling fairy tales, they accept you. But if you start speaking and really speaking, they want to belittle you and send the shills in and shit. So to the ones that do go through like, I don't personally put myself on a cross, because I know, um, I don't really like stress anyway. And if I don't know where the stress is coming from, that leads to paranoia. So I stay away from that type of shit. I just try to keep it, hey, I'm just trying to basically bored before work, or things I like to do to settle down at the end of the night. And most of them are discussions, live if possible, Periscope, whatever. I'm going to get some type of message out there. But you know pay attention to the people that you trust in. Pay attention to the people like Alex Jones that wants to tell you truth, or so-called truth, what his handlers will let him talk about, because he's a teleprompter motherfucker too. He doesn't speak truly from the heart. If he did, he'd have a bullet in his head. People said less and have been executed over things that your Alex Joneses have said and say, your Dr. Dick Gregory's, a lot of individuals. But they're saying things that has already been said. They're not telling you anything new until it arises, and then they want to have their input in on it. But if you was really in the know, you would see it coming. Bottom line, you would see it coming. You wouldn't have to wait for that event to happen to say, oh, I knew this was coming, or I knew this, or I knew that, or blase blah. Pay attention to what you think is true information. you know uh, let's go into Malcolm X. What was Malcolm X's downfall? you know he spoke up against the Nation of Islam because he's seen the flaws in the Nation of Islam. When you look up to, believe in, and love your teacher, your master, and you find out, like I said, the dirty little details that every human being has that can afflict and affect the student, to the point that he has to let, because he is a student of the truth and of enlightenment, but not in a bad way. And he starts to expose that to the public. What happens? The agenda comes and sees you. The agenda comes and takes care of you. And then they martyrize you. They turn you into a martyr. But when I was saying Farrakhan the other night, it's just because Farrakhan stays on my mind when I think of Malcolm X and his demise. I think of the Nation of Islam when I think of Malcolm X and his demise, because you've seen true transformation in humanity coming out of Malcolm X during the transformation of his life, which also became the end. And it was the end of what most of us call the human experience, and the beginning of an actual spiritual awakening. And that's not what nobody wants. Not whites, but all in power. The black Masons, the white Masons, every Masons. The Scottish Rite, the Templars Knight, the Moors. All these things still exist to this day. The Black Boule. There's representation from all races when it comes to this Masonic and this enlightened Illuminati bunch of people. There is no one color. There's just one task. There's one goal at hand, and that is to have everybody roll under one ruler and think one way. Guard your soul. Be careful. Your best friend could be your deceiver. Your lover can be, give you the death blow. You just never know. But if you don't know history, you don't know the future. No one can predict the future, but you can, from history, predict the outcome of certain events. Not necessarily dates, times, the exact way, but you can predict the outcome of certain situations due to the study of history and mankind, more importantly. Um, guard your soul. Guard your soul every day, because there's always a new way for them to enter inside of you. It's like when they see certain parts of society bite into something, they'll roll with it. If they see certain programs and certain applications that they're using, and when I say application, I don't mean phone and computer applications, I mean real life applications. When they see those things don't work, but they see promising aspects of that project, they'll use those. They'll manifest them into something else, and you have a new project. And they keep doing that, and they keep doing that until something works. And then, the trick is everything is in fad. Everything works for a while. But then as humans and as thinkers, we get smart. And so they have to keep changing up, because they don't want to live by something as simple as just truth. So the lie has to always change up. The lie has to, I have to mow my nose hairs like a motherfucker, people, let me tell you. Um, the rule has, they have to always change up the lie, because the truth will never change. The truth can't change because it's truth. But the lie it always has to be refashioned, or has to be sent at you in a different angle, because the human mind, soul, body, and experience catches on. Even in the masses, catches on to things not being right. So they're always constantly changing up the rules, the ways, the representation, the presentation to their evil deeds, just so me and you will stay interested, because nobody's interested in being lied to or interested in lies. So you have to keep spinning it. You gotta keep putting a little twist to it, and you know different etiquette. And like being political correct. Like, what the fuck is politically correct when the politicians don't even act correct? What does it matter how you speak if everything you're speaking is hollow and full of lies? They call it political correctness because it's just another form of lying and trying to make it sound like you fucking know something. It's just other words that make it easier to lie to the public that aren't in the know, that are years and years behind educationally compared to the ones that rule, compared to the ones that say they came up like you and I, that they're just one generation of way of being blue collar and bullshit. Bullshit. None of them are. Otherwise, people we know and we know would rise to power. You know? That's fairy tale shit. These leaders are planned. You don't believe me? Let me tell you something. There was two books 124 years ago. One of them was called The Adventures of Baron Trump, or Baron and the Adventures of Trump, or something like that. And in this book, Baron, now everybody knows Donald Trump's youngest son, his name is Baron, right? Well, in this book, Baron's teacher or mentor, his name was Don, 124 years ago. Look it up. Read it. It'll freak you out. It'll fucking freak you out. The Adventures of Baron Trump, or um, Baron and the Adventures of Trump, something to that effect. But Google it, and you'll flip out what you read. 124 years ago. And there's another book too. I can't remember what it's called, but it's about basically Donald Trump, and it talks about Pence, and they were both written by the same author within a year apart. Masonic bullshit that they bring forth, that they, like I tell you, they work in like centuries. They work way ahead, way ahead of us. They don't, they don't work in weeks and months. They work in decades, because then me and you can't keep up unless you keep up with history. And then when, not to say you keep up with history, but you keep up when you hear and say certain things. It was called The Last President. That's what that book was called, The Last President. And the president's name in the book, I do believe, was Trump. And like one of his main speakers, or like his main, in the second book, his main like go-to guy, his name was Pence, spelled the same way. The Last President, and the second book, or the first book I was talking about, I think it was called Baron and the Adventures of Trump, or something like that. But look them up, and I think you might be able to read them too, and just take down the little take down the things that make sense to present day, and it'll blow your fucking mind how these Masons work, and how nothing under the sun is new. Everything is planned, ordained, and will happen. So when I open up the Masonic Holy Bible and I see a portrait of Albert Pike, and Albert Pike being the Mason that predicted the three world wars and the coming of the Antichrist and the New World Order, you better pay attention, because these people ain't fucking around with your mind, body, or your soul. They don't care about it to start out with. We're just the labor to make this life in this world comfortable for them, for when it's time for us to exit off of this world because of their evil deeds. We're just building it up and getting it ready for them. And then we get to say bye-bye to their made-up God, a nuclear bomb, which I'm sure they're past that. I don't think, well, bombs, I've always said that bombs is not the solution. They've got vaccinations that they mandate, that if your children don't take these vaccinations, they can't go to school. They're chipping people. They're honest to God chipping people. Everything that 15 years ago they were saying is happening. Now, yeah, they say, oh, and it's easy. You pay for your stuff, you this and that and the third. I say that's what they tell you now. But imagine this. Imagine always being tracked no matter what. You can't go anywhere. You're always going to be tracked. Fuck tracking your currency and your fucking credit score and what time your bills are due or whatever. You are being tracked. That's like cattle being stamped. That's just like cattle being stamped. Who you belong to. Is your rancher the Americans? Is your rancher the Chinese? But the bottom line is, it's living cattle, and it's as plain as day. They're not doing it for your benefit at all. It's totally for their benefit. And we will, the future generations will be forced into this shit. There will be bills passed, and it'll be like second nature, and nobody will stand up against it. They'll accept it because it's the law of the land, and people don't believe in what's truly right and what's truly wrong anymore. What they truly believe in is whatever the television and their leaders tell them is right and is safe. If everything is so safe, then why is Flint, Michigan's water still fucked up? You know? And that's just logical speaking. If everything is so safe and this governmental system is working out so well, why, after so many years, 100 years, over 100 years of modern day agriculture, and why are there still starving people? Why are there people still hungry and homeless in this fucking world? When you could put up, I mean, these houses go up like you wouldn't believe, but you got to have the money. They're just not going to put you up in one. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying they should have. When you are the provider of the poverty, and you're the reason for the poverty, then you should have a plan set aside for those who don't want to play that game, because this is a game you're forcing upon people. People aren't choosing to play this game of the currency flow. They're being born into it, they're being taught it, and some reject it. So your capitalism isn't working. It's each day I wake up, it's more and more and more and more like socialism. Be careful of the disinformers. Be careful of your Al Sharptons. Be careful of your Alex Joneses. Be careful of anyone who is trying to tell you any type of truth, but they're being sponsored by a company. They're trying to sell something to you. They have their own agenda. They're not speaking truth. Stay clear of those type of people. They have nothing good to offer you. If they're not giving you the 100, it's not worth your time to hear what they really got to say. Because the bottom line is they either want to pledge for their services, they want to sell you something, or they want to disinform you. They want to tell you the truth about something, but then they want to curveball you away from what the truth really is. So it seems like they're speaking upon it, but they're not even giving their own opinion about the situation. They're just spin doctoring whatever that teleprompter is telling them to say or showing them to say. That's real talk. Stay real to you, stay real to your family. Focus on what's right. And what's right is to be informed. What's wrong is to be a dunce to the evil that is being presented in every direction, in every corner, 360 degrees, if you choose to live in a circle. But it's up to us to keep speaking up, speaking forward, and pushing out a little bit of truth. Some people call it conspiracy, some people call it whatever they want. I call those people blind, boxed in, and they're just rabbits, and they dig little holes to feel safe. But if the fox or the wolf wants to come and get you, guess what? They know right where you're at, because that's where you're comfortable at. So focus in on what they're focusing in on you, and that's you, but not in a good way. Guard your soul. For the 1000th time, every time, I will always say it because it means that much to me that people aren't guarding their soul. And a lot of people think that they are, but they're truly not. They might not be letting the rats and the snakes in, but they're letting the pestilence, the little tiny fleas and ticks and roaches, and you know, evil comes in many forms and it can be symbolized in many different ways. So sometimes it don't have to be something as big as a rat or even a mice. Sometimes it could be something as small as a parasite that will be the downfall of one's mindset because of they bit into the whole truth but didn't pay attention to like that speaker was infested with parasites. Be careful. One thug, one love. I love you all.